Hi, Limit Break Overdrive with another build guide video, and this time is for Lacerate Gladiator. That's right, it's making a comeback. However, this build requires a Transfigured Gem, but it's still SSF viable because you don't really need it until you get it. Basically, the normal Lacerate still does the trick. Lacerate of Hemorrhage is just the same Lacerate but with more damage, so we do want to use that at some point. League Starter will take you up to tier 16 maps. It's gonna allow you to kill some bosses. I've tested it somewhat in Affliction League. I killed the Shaper at level 91 with like, it was really easy. I'm gonna actually put the whole fight at the end of the video. I've done the Formed Invitation, I killed the Maven, so that's alright. It's not as tanky as my Juggernaut that I like doing, and for which I will probably make another guide this league, but it's still tanky and it's still good. It's a different playstyle, it's quite fun to play with. So, as for the early game, you start with Splitting Steel, and you change into Sunder as soon as possible. I just feel Sunder feels really good early on, especially for clearing while running through the campaign. You do get Lacerate in Act 1, I think it's when you enter Merve's Cavern, Nessa gives it to you as a quest reward. You can switch to it already when you get it, but I don't really like it. I prefer using Lacerate when we do get more attack speed, but it's still viable at any time. I just think Sunder is quicker early on. One of the reasons is that our main source of damage, which is Bleed, I mean, we don't get that much because we only get to 50-60% chance bleed chance early on, like 25% on chance to bleed, 25% on Lacerate, and you can get some on the tree at some point. So I like waiting for that, and also Lacerate feels better with higher attack speed. What I like doing usually is switching either right after normal lab when I get my challenger chargers, which is right before Dominus is when I ascend, or you can wait a level 38 to get multi-strike support, which you get in Act 4 after killing the Reso and Calm. That's an option, but the leveling section in the POB covers all that, and speaking of the POB, let's just jump right into it. Alright, so the notes section is pretty lengthy, and it covers a lot of stuff, questions you might have, so before asking more questions, please watch this video and read the notes section. But if you do have questions, feel free to come to my Discord, my Twitch, and I'll be happy to help. I might league start this, I'm not sure yet, but anyway I can help you. I've played Lacerate quite a lot in the past anyway, and it did not change that much. The biggest difference, I'd say, is spell suppression is kind of needed, which I don't think existed back in the days, but anyway, but yeah. I'm talking about Jack the Axe, the Ascendancy Order, leveling part, how we mitigate physical damage, if you want to get a Brutal Restraint, skill trees and gear sets, which I'm going to go into more detail later on, Corrupted Blood immunity and whatnot. So there's a lot of things covered, so make sure you actually look at that. And now let's jump in the skills section. So in the skills sections, the links for the main skill are in order of priority. In my opinion, Multi-Strike is the one that feels best, Brutality for damage, Melee Fizz, Cruelty, and Volatility in the end is probably what's going to give you the more damage. The reason I put the normal Lacerate and Lacerate of Hemorrhage is because you can easily compare damage by just doing that, and you see the normal Lacerate is quite lower in terms of damage. And of course the Awakened Gems, they're not enabled by default, but right there, by enabling the two, we get like 150k damage additional, and it's damage over time. It might not seem that high, but damage over time has an higher uptime, so it's quite good, and it gets higher than that in other gear sets. As for the first utility is the both Protector and War Chief, the totems, with Culling Strike, because we can get it, we have enough sockets, and Culling Strike is always nice against bosses. Our auras, I mean, we need a lot of mana reservation on that build, and I could not quite fit Determination easily, but Arctic Armor is good enough. It's really a good aura. So we get Pride, Blood and Sand, and Malevolence for damage. And Arctic Armor mitigates physical damage, fire damage, gives us freeze immunity, and it's 25% mana reservation. And enemies even get chill when they hit or are hit, I'm not sure, so that's another defensive layer. We use vulnerability as a curse, and we automate it with reckoning, which triggers every time you block, with X touch and life tap, because this is going to cost a shit ton of mana. If you ever get the curse on it, ring or gloves, corruption and whatnot, you could ditch that and use something else, but I mean, it's a league starter, so this you know you will get at some point. And the only thing is Hex Touch you keep at level 1 for the int requirement. Your curses will have less duration, but so what, you're just gonna keep recasting it automatically anyway, so that's fine. Cast with damage taken, Immortal Call, and I put Blood Rage there because we need to put Blood Rage at some point, because it's just a lot of attack speed. And this you might not want to use, but I do use it. It's Frenzy, just to generate Frenzy charges against bosses. And it's not that slow because we do get Challenger charges, so we have a lot of attack speed. And as soon as you have like an opening, the boss is doing something, I don't know, you just generate them. And now you only have to hit once with Frenzy every now and then just to keep them up. If you can, it's just added damage. I just thought this was the simplest, but switching to the tree, you could take Swagger, which is mentioned in the notes as well, to generate Frenzy charges when you block. It's a 2-pointers though, but that's another option. And that's pretty much it for the skills. Actually, before going to the tree, let's talk about the items and the gear sets, because that's going together with the trees. So we're gonna talk about the gear, and the way I do my builds, it's the third league I believe. I do it this way and I just like it. It gives you more options. The first one you're gonna want to look at is probably some suppress from 3, but this one's also fine. It's almost the same stats, just higher in some added damage. But if you choose some suppress from 3, you choose the exact same name for a skill tree, and this goes, they both go together, so you can easily compare. Okay, yeah, I do have my spell suppression because my gear doesn't have enough. Once you do have enough from the gear, you can just go there. That gives you other options, and you can get slightly more than 85 on the gear. In the last 15 points I get from Inveterate anointing that. I could anoint Acrimony for more damage, but I save so many skill points doing that, and I think I get more damage in the end doing it this way. Then you get the big one with really, I mean, big items. That's the name. I do include Jack the Axe, because this is a really good axe for Lacerate. It gives you an aura that preserves life, which gives you 20% more damage. And if you have that, you can take the masteries. I believe it's here. Increase physical damage with skills that cost life, and it's a lot of damage. Does it work with the bleed, not just the hit part of the damage? So this is a really good one, but I don't want to include it in the base gear set because it's quite rare. Maybe you don't want to trade, maybe you're an SSF, so I really want like the most option possible, but I still have to mention it because it's probably what you want to strive for if you trade, because the other one needs to be like really good, have really good roll, and even this one I think would need more damage over time multiplier, maybe using the Elder Influence or whatnot, so it's quite hard to craft. But that's still an option nevertheless. And then there's a tree for level 100, you stay with big or whatever, just to give you an idea. But that's basically how I do my things. Last thing I want to mention is the flasks. Usually I would be using Granite, Basalt, just to give us some more armor. It's not a lot of armor, but I mean, it's some physical damage mitigation. But the way I have to make the build right now, it's requiring a lot of skill points, and I like usually taking these points for max res, along with a mastery here, to get close to 80%. And that's quite hard to do with having enough damage, but they've changed the flasks, and you could use a topaz, a ruby, and a sapphire instead of granite, basalt, and silver to get 5% more maximum elemental resistances and a lot of resists. The only reason I'm hesitating on this build is I'm not sure we're gonna generate enough flash charges against bosses to keep them up at all times. So I'm not sure if we should be relying on that. We do get the the mod that gives you charges when you get hit by an enemy, and when you block, it counts as getting hit. So it should be alright, but I want to test it first before actually committing to it. But that's an option you might want to keep in mind. But otherwise, 2 damage flask and 2 armor flask is what I go for. But yeah, Sapphire, Topaz, and Ruby flasks are probably gonna be better. According to PoB, it's more damage reduction. 82 for damage mitigation, not sulfur. I can't read. Topaz, Ruby, and Sapphire, but it's less damage. It's not the new flask, so I'm not sure if this is gonna be more or less. So, alright, this brings us to the last part of the guide, and is the skill tree, or skill trees with an S, because I make a lot. There's the first tree you want to look at is normal lab. Early on, you might lack some damage. Don't take these bleed nodes early on. What I would do would be taking these life node here, then rush this axe cluster to get damage, since we're using Sunder and the 2-handed axe at the start, and the Rage Mastery just to get the attack speed and movement speed. It just feels better. Then I would take Fortify, the life nodes. Then I would, if you want to switch to Lacerate early, then yeah, do take at least the first bleed node here to get more bleed chance, and then go to Resolute Technique. Or if you wait for normal lab or in Act 4, then yeah, rush Resolute Technique first, and then you can take the bleed node, and it should be at around normal lab that you get all these nodes. Then you get Cruel Lab, even more stuff. And now that you do have Resolute Technique, you drop Precision, and it's mentioned in the leveling parts of the notes. You use Precision at the start just to get more accuracy. You get some reservation because you want to use Pride, you want to use Blood and Sand early on, and just to make sure you have enough mana. Merc Lab, and then you start going with these trees. The order of the Ascendancy is Arena Challenger. This one feels the best early on. Cruel Lab, this, and now technically you could respec Arena Challenger to get the Bleed Explosion, but I just think Arena Challenger feels better. Even if the pack don't explode and the corpses are not destroyed, they're still gonna die from bleeding, so you can run and they're probably gonna all die anyway. So I just think this is best, but that's a choice. I just think this choice is slightly better. Then on Merc Lab you take Gratuitous Violence to get the Bleed Explosion and more damage. And you finish with Outmatch and Outlast to get Frenzy and Endurance charges on kill all the time with more damage and physical damage taken, reduced physical damage taken. And if you can manage to generate them on bosses, then you still get the bonus. So that's basically the skill trees and how I make the builds. So hopefully you're gonna like it. I might leak start this build, I'm not quite sure yet. And I will make at least another build guide with Bone Shatter Juggernaut making another return, because it's just so good. So let me know down in the comments if you're gonna try this build, if you've already played that, if you like it or not. And thanks for watching. See you in the next build guide.
These memories are mine. I cannot lose them.
They lie to you, Father. I'm your true memory.
Yeah, alright,
To
alright.
save the future, the past must be sacrificed.
They're coming through.
Okay, gotta pay attention to the volatiles that are gonna be coming my way. I think I blocked the slam.
Embrace my destiny.
I think my totems have Calling Strike. Oh yeah, Dying Sun!
Irrelevant.
That was so easy!